This is the National Links Trust Municipal Golf Network webinar. This is episode number 10. We've been doing this for the last 2 or 3 years, and I've always enjoyed these conversations. I've learned a lot through them, so I hope others who are tuning in, who have tuned in before, have learned a lot as well. I'm excited for this discussion with the Dallas Golf Initiative discussing the future of Tenison Glen golf course in Dallas, as well as just sort of what it means to be a community organization trying to better their own municipal golf scene. We've known these guys since our very first symposium back, I guess that was in 2021, and have really enjoyed watching them try to do good things in Dallas. So let me give you a little bit of background. This is we're heading to the Lone Star State to check in with the Dallas Golf Initiative, DGI, a nonprofit organization modeled similarly to National Links Trust. DGI was formed in 2020 in response to the proposed closing of 9 holes at the Glen Golf Course at Tenison Park to make way for a paved walking and biking trail that connects to the larger trail network within the city of Dallas. Knowing what was coming, DGI worked diligently around a vision for a golf facility that honored Tenison's rich history while creating a more inclusive, engaging, and accessible business model that included a 2-story driving range, a par 3 course, and an urban golf park. We are joined today by DGI Executive Board members Brett Messerall and Benton Payne to talk about this project and DGI's vision for the future of the property, navigating the difficulties and disappointment of creating change within the city of Dallas park and recreation system, and how everyday municipal golf enthusiasts like themselves can get involved in their own community and apply lessons learned from Brett and Benton's experiences over the past 4 years. Man, that's 4 years flies, doesn't it, guys? I mean, it's wild to think. We've been grinding away here in DC, and I feel like you guys have kind of been along for the ride, or on a similar path, and it's amazing how time flies. So let me give you guys a little bit of background on Brett and Benton. Brett Messerall is president and treasurer of DGI. In addition to his work with DGI, Brett is also helping to develop Dream Golf's newest project in East Texas, Wild Spring Dunes. Benton is the vice president of DGI, and like Brett, is working to develop Wild Spring Dunes. A native of Dallas, Benton grew up playing a little golf, but didn't truly fall in love with the game until he moved back to Dallas after college. Guys, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. So let's start with how the city of Dallas sets up its municipal golf. Tell us a little bit about the landscape and maybe a little bit about how the business arrangement is set up.
I lean to Benton for all the organizational structure, given his past. So I'll feed him first for you. Benton, do you mind taking that one?
Sure.
Okay.
So the Dallas, for those unfamiliar, the Dallas municipal system has 5 facilities. Tenison is the only one with 2 18-hole golf courses, and it's situated just east of downtown, so it's one of the most central in the system. The way Dallas manages its golf assets is it actually has sort of a hybrid public-private partnership model. So what they do is they outsource the management of the pro shop and the operations to third-party PGA professionals. And those PGA professionals manage the marketing and the booking of the green fees and everything like that. And at the same time, the city parks department actually maintains the golf course. So superintendents are park employees. All of the grounds crew is also park employees, and the superintendent reports directly to the director of parks, not to the PGA professional. The city pays obviously for all the maintenance, and they also receive 100% of the green fees, and then they take a percent that varies from course to course of all the other revenue that's generated by the golf project. So that's sort of the lay of the land, and it's been that way for about 40-50 years. And so that's been an interesting thing to sort of peel back the onion on. And there's, you know, it kind of segues into something that I wanted to make kind of very clear from the get-go. You know, when we started this project, our main focus was not really to poke holes at the operator. The operator is hired by the city of Dallas to do a job. They do that job pretty well. You know, that's not really our issue. Our issue really comes with the city, and the way that we think this structure works is that disincentivizes creative thinking and capital investments into stuff. It kind of, you know, provides more energy for, you know, keeping the status quo and not really doing anything creative or different with the golf assets. So that's sort of really where our focus sort of shifted and sort of understanding this model.
Yeah, so walk us through that evolution, right? In January of 2020, it was proposed to shut down at least 9 holes of the Glen course at Tenison in order to link, I guess, a trail system that was being put in or proposed, and that got your guys' attention. So what take us, make sure I have that right, and then to take us forward from there.
You are right. Hayden Martin, one of our other board members, who I was working with at the time, there was an article that came out, and it more or less said that the golf course, the Glen, the entire course would potentially shut down. Now, that maybe wasn't true, but that was what the article said, and it was on the heels of Benton and I doing a trip out to Goat Hill Park and seeing kind of, you know, what a fun municipal experience was, and really wanting to get involved here locally. And so we thought that that would be an opportunity for us to be able to reach out, and we wanted to understand more. And so really, you know, it started out as just a few guys that liked municipal golf, and you know, wanted to understand kind of where the path was going. And when we reached out and kind of, you know, talked with a lot of the folks at the Parks Department and the folks involved in the hike and bike trail, which is the Loop project, we understood that, you know, yes, the hike and bike trail was going to go through the golf course because they weren't able to acquire some additional property, and that was going to change the footprint. The city was very receptive in understanding what, you know, through a survey with residents, golfers, but also stakeholders like ourselves that wanted to be involved, what the, you know, alternative or potential could be. It's a 30, you know, Tenison as a whole is a 36-hole facility. The Glen course is the lesser of the two in terms of, you know, the rounds played per year, you know, the maintenance, the you know, it's the cheapest one in the municipal system. And so changing that up into an alternative product to complement the Highlands course was something we were really interested in doing. And we thought, you know, the city, you know, came back and kind of through the survey said 9 holes. So we then kind of started thinking through that a bit more, and then started talking with potential donors and really understood, okay, well, instead of just doing 9 holes, can we complement that by doing something a little bit more non-traditional? And that's where kind of the par 3 option came into play. And so that's really, I mean, how this all started from the onset. And then from there, obviously, that was 4 years ago, and it's snowballed. Intentions have changed. The project has changed. The RFPs have come out, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But that's initially kind of the pre-impetus of DGI and our involvement.
Yeah. So obviously you guys are sort of disappointed that part of this golf course was going to go away, but it sparked your creative juices and said, okay, well, let's get together. Let's try to figure out a path forward that will be able to put something really, really cool in this space, right? And so you sort of had this vision, and then how quickly did you understand, sort of realize that you were putting your hand into a hornet's nest in terms of complexity and dealing with local politics and local parks and recs and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, to sort of piggyback on what Brett was saying, I mean, the Glen itself, it's very Jekyll and Hyde when you go to Tenison. I mean, the Highlands is probably the highest. I think it's the highest daily rate in the system. Very well maintained, very highly thought of course, and the Glen is the opposite. It's the lowest price point. It's in a floodplain, aging infrastructure in terms of the irrigation system. The erosion is a really big problem. So, you know, everything the city had been telling us was, hey, this keeping this land as a golf course, it's a drag on our expenses. You know, rounds at the time were in the, you know, 17 to 20,000 per year. And that was just not compelling for the city to keep it, you know, really the way it was. And so, you know, as we started this project, I mean, the city was, you know, the Parks Department and the Park Board, you know, on the whole, they've been very receptive to the conversation. I do want to give them credit for that. It's been very easy to have those conversations with the city in terms of, hey, can we see what's going on behind the curtain? They took us to the maintenance facility. We've toured around the project. We've been able to bring golf course professionals out there to show them kind of what our thoughts are. We've had architects and land planners going out there. But, you know, at the time, you know, for a while, the RFPs are 5-year contracts. And so the existing RFPs for all the golf courses in the system were set to expire at the end of 2023. And, you know, that sort of coincided. It became this window of opportunity where it's like, okay, so clearly the city has an appetite for a large scale change at Tenison. And there's also a potential change on the horizon if the RFP system changes. And the reason that's important is because you know, when we started going and talking to donors, I think everyone will not be shocked to hear that there was very little donor interest in writing checks to do a capital improvement project that ultimately the city would maintain and outsource management to an unrelated third party. That was just it was an absolute non-starter, regardless of the vision and its merits. That was kind of the issue. So we quickly identified that as the key thing that needed to sort of change in order to have any conversation around a new Tenison Glen or other improvements to the facility happening quickly, you know, without the city just kind of figuring out how to pay for it on their own. That's sort of kind of where we began to put our attention and focus over time. Is there another system that we can get the city of Dallas to agree is worth considering? And that's sort of where we went.
And to piggyback on that, Will, you know, we're golf enthusiasts, and was very well aware as to what you all were doing up in DC with the National Links Trust, and probably around a similar time read Mike McCartan's master's thesis on you know, that he did at, I guess, the University of Georgia, and around, you know, municipal golf, and there's a chapter in there on management, and it resonated with us. And knowing, you know, at the symposium, hearing Seth Waugh talk about public-private partnerships, the importance of those with cities, hearing success stories, seeing success stories here in our own market, you know, not necessarily around golf, but other, you know, other facilities. And it quickly became apparent that that model was a proven model that we thought could be implemented down here in Dallas, and that the nonprofit could act as a fundraising arm, but also all the profits, you know, you get a master lease or whatever have you, and you do your capital contributions, but then all the profits are then redistributed back into the asset itself. And it was almost our way of thinking, and I don't know if we were wrong in this, but it was almost our way of thinking, gosh, isn't this what municipal golf should be all about? Shouldn't it be about the asset, the golfers, and those two parties being the ones that are winning, as opposed to it being a profit source, and you know, looked at a little differently.
So you guys turned your attention to changing the system, which the entrenched system, right? Which is always tough. And I guess, you know, we've touched on what the system was, but were you guys thinking, okay, well, let's just change it for Tenison? Or were you guys thinking, okay, if we're going to do it, it really should change for all the facilities in Dallas?
I think there's definitely a conversation to have around sort of economies of scale when you're talking about something like this, around one sort of oversight body managing all the golf system at once. but that was never our intent. I mean, for us as an organization, you know, that we had no intention of ever doing anything outside of Tenison. The other golf courses have their own, you know, either, you know, dedicated professionals or affiliated nonprofits that are doing interesting things. And we didn't want to, you know, it was never our intention to sort of get, you know, in the way of what other groups were doing. But we were definitely aware that this is something that potentially all the courses could benefit from, right? I mean, you know, like Brett was saying, we have other park assets in the city of Dallas that are managed with public-private partnerships that are doing really well. The zoo and the Arboretum are two prime examples of that. And so we didn't think it was going to, you know, we had some things to point to, right? In terms of this is a system that works. Y'all know how to do it already. We could apply it here and potentially could work just as well, or if not a little bit better. So, you know, we know what's happening at Alamo City Golf Trail. Obviously, we've been very connected with those folks. They've been a great resource to us. Obviously, National Leagues Trust, you know, is the sort of fountainhead of all of this. So again, we knew that having multiple courses under one umbrella was a potential, you know, outcome, but that was not, for us, that was not our intention.
So before we kind of get a little bit further in the story, we talked about it briefly, but you know, once you sort of got into it and started really looking at it, looking under the hood and really understanding what the potential was out there, where did your master plan kind of fall out? What was included? What did you guys think was the best path forward for Tenison Glen?
It's, I mean, it really started with the 9-hole golf course, and then from there it evolved, right? Over time, things just have a way of evolving, and I think we netted out at, okay, gosh, if we had the keys to the facility and we were able to raise, you know, the subsequent funds, what would be the best realized potential, knowing that this is a very central, very frequented, you know, facility in a thriving market that needs more public golf, that's got a year-round, you know, season. And so when we started engaging with architects and land planners, and really kind of looking under the hood and thinking long term, it really made sense to look at a lot of the non-traditional stuff. Really, you know, par 3 golf courses under the lights. We kind of started thinking about, okay, if Tenison Glen is, you know, 16 of the 18 holes are in a floodplain, are across the railroad tracks in kind of this separate parcel of land, that is an added layer of complications for, as you can imagine, maintenance, but also safety, things along those lines. So if we could bring it all and be on one kind of contiguous parcel of land and somewhat even shrink the footprint, but make it programmatically better, that we could have a lit par 3 golf course as the new Glen. We would have you know, expanded driving range that could have, you know, technology, you know, like you all have up, I forget which facility, but top tracer technology or, you know, other technology, range technology, double decker that, knowing how, you know, how many buckets of balls that they sell there on an annual basis, and how busy that is. So kind of, you know, growing the footprint of the actual range. There is a urban golf park, which is something that Mark Harrison up at the North Texas PGA chapter, I think is the person that came up with this idea. And it is more or less a synthetic playground that blurs the lines of, you know, playground meets golf. And so you've got a few golf holes, some putting, you know, some putting greens, but then you almost have like a jungle gym, you know, monkey bars on there. And it's meant for folks the age of 3 to 12. And it really just kind of, like I said, blurs the lines, and you bring that in. And next thing you know, complemented with the existing Highlands, and a potential putting course, you've got programs that suit all these different needs. And that's where, you know, obviously thinking about the F&B program, growing out kind of some of the vertical and renovation of the clubhouse. I mean, it was a pretty grandiose idea. But we thought that it really catered to everybody that would want to be involved, right? I mean, from the initial footprint of someone stepping on a golf course and being able to partake, to folks that want to go out there and score and play your traditional 18-hole golf course.
Yeah, and just to sort of, elaborate on that just a second, the, Tenison golf course is situated within a larger park in Dallas called Samuel Grand. It's sort of like how Memorial Golf Course is within Memorial Park in Houston. Samuel Grand is much smaller than Memorial Park, but it is a very central park. It's got a lot of amenities. It's got tennis, aquatics, things of that nature, biking and running trails. And going back to that original plan, the city of Dallas said, okay, we're giving the hike and bike trail, the Loop Project, Circuit Trail Conservancy behind that project is a very close organization with ours. We've done a lot of, we've helped each other out quite a bit. And the public and the city all weighed in and said, this 9 holes that are currently the Glen that we kind of want to get rid of, what if we turn that into a nature preserve, right? This is something that the city wants to see, a little bit more of a natural setting for park participants. And it really sort of crystallized with us that, part of our guiding principles are, like Brett was saying, blurring those lines between sort of the golf course and the public park. And there's no better way to do that than having some of those informal golf adjacent activities that are a little bit easier for non-golfers and infrequent golfers and newcomers to sort of dip their toe in the water. That off-course golf, we've all seen the statistics about that, full 18-hole golf rounds are growing at this rate. Off-course golf activities are growing like that. I mean, it is a complete, it is a moonshot right now. It's unbelievable. So really trying to figure out, what can we do that's capitalizing on this growth while also creating inclusive and welcoming environments for folks that traditionally walked into Tenison and immediately thought, well, this is not for me. I'm not, a golfer, so I'm going to turn around and go somewhere else. Like, oh wow, I think I could do that. They're putting the ball around. That looks like a lot of fun. So that was very, sort of a way to incorporate Tenison into the larger park itself. Was a very key point for us.
Yeah.
So you've got your vision. You know that this 2023 RFP is looming. Walk us through, I guess, what last year and what ended up happening.
Brett looks like he's looking at me to answer this one.
Yeah, I am looking at you to answer that. You can articulate it a little bit better.
So basically, the city first off did extend all the contracts across the golf system for a year, and this was at the time something that the new park board director Arun Agarwal was very interested in looking at these alternative golf management systems. He wrote an op-ed in the Dallas Morning News about it. There was some momentum on the park board to look at this, and there's another organization at another City of Dallas Municipal Golf Course. I Am a Golfer. They're down at Cedar Crest Golf Course, which is an incredible asset. A.W. Tillinghast designed, hosted the 1927 PGA Championship. Incredible history down there. We haven't even touched on our history, which really centers around Lee Trevino, but we'll get there in a moment, I promise. So we're doing what we're doing. I'm a Golfer's been involved with Cedar Crest for nigh on a decade, doing some really great work. And the city was looking at our organization, saying, maybe we can find a way to sort of integrate these groups into the system a little bit more. So they delayed the RFPs for an entire year. So they're expiring at the end of 2024. And at the time, and we can get into this a little bit later too, we're still sort of crystallizing our vision into an actual document, right? A business plan, a site plan, all those types of things. And based on the way the city was moving in terms of, they had a request for information in early 2023. They never really followed up on any of that. All the internal signals that we were getting from the city was that it was likely the city was going to issue another blanket extension to all of the golf course facilities, pushing their contracts out to end of 2025. So we knew that was not guaranteed, but we were hopeful that was the city would, the direction the city would take, for our organization. That would have been helpful to give us another year. And then in April of 2024, the city park board called a meeting where they essentially decided within about 20 minutes to issue RFPs for all the existing golf courses under the exact same hybrid terms that the existing golf courses, that the existing contracts are in, except for Cedar Crest. So Tenison, Stevens Park, Luna Vista, and Keaton Park, we're going to be bid out under the same system as is in place with with worse economic terms for the operators. And the response window for those RFPs was going to be about 4 weeks. They announced this they decided this at the park board meeting. They issued the RFPs on the 4th of July, literally on the 4th of July, for a week, for a 30-day response window. And that was really sort of heartbreaking for us. And we thought about it a lot. Our goal had been to use the master plan to go raise contingent capital, to go put a team together over the following year to really put the squad to take Tenison, negotiate a deal with the city, have a long-term control, have a fundraising option, which would be DGI, have professional greenskeepers, PGA professionals that are there to make sure it gets run properly, negotiate a deal with the city, and do something really special. And when the city announced its RFP under the same terms in such a short response window, I mean, it was a huge bummer for us because we really wanted to be part of that process. But I think more than that, what really got under our skin was that it closed the door to everybody. Like, we're at a moment in time with the focus on golf and all the alternative golf assets and the capital that's around we don't have to talk here about how many golf courses are going up around the country. We're right now responsible for one of them besides this. It's the investment and the fervor around growing the game of golf has never been higher. And for the city to take that window of opportunity and basically say, no, we're just going to double down on the existing system that has, the problems that we think limit creative thinking and options, to not just DGI, but to close the door to everybody, for-profit, nonprofit, whoever. If anybody was able to show up with an incredible plan to make Tenison a better place for the city of Dallas and for the golfers here and for the residents, we would have happily supported that vision. It wasn't about us taking control. This is about making a better product and something interesting for the city of Dallas. And that's the door that the city shut, in our opinion. And that's really the most unfortunate part for us, is that sort of fallout.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Brett.
Well, I was just gonna say one more thing. I mean, all the while, over the past year, we've been meeting with anyone and everyone that would take a meeting with us, which, I think for a lot of folks out there, if you aren't involved with your local municipality or parks department, I think it's very surprising, the folks that are willing to sit down and kind of hear you out. So we do give them a ton of credit. We were lobbying for this nonprofit model, right? For change because of what the success that they've seen with other projects, to no avail. But all the while, we do have to give them credit because we have urged them to look at the nonprofit model or other models that are out there. And they, in that year-long extension, did do a good job of traveling around the country. They, I think, went to the National Link Symposium. They went out to El Segundo, which is a Top Golf kind of joint venture, par 3 concept in California. They went down to the Alamo City Golf Trail in San Antonio. They went to Houston. They went to other facilities to really understand what's going on around the country. And I think that was very, that was very warming, knowing that they were listening and open to hearing it. I think where we netted out is that they took all of that and then just immediately went back to the old system.
Do you think that COVID and the boom that occurred around golf actually hurt because there wasn't a sort of incentive to try to do something creative? I mean, the cash flows are probably better than they've ever been, and therefore, like, why fix something that's not broke?
Absolutely, right. I mean, with municipal golf, I mean, it's hard enough to be profitable, right? And these facilities are profitable, and they're I think in their mind, right? Like we're in the weeds. We're really in the weeds in the golf industry and have a pulse as to what's going on around the country. And you got to really think about it from the city's perspective. Right? They're not. I mean, most of the folks that are involved in the decision-making processes are not golfers. They're not industry professionals. And so all they look at are the numbers, right? It's very black and white in that they look at it, and last year and the year before have been banner years for them. Therefore, you are correct. It is they in their mind are doing the best job possible, and that hinders creativity and change.
We all know that golf courses need capital improvements from time to time. What is the city doing to put aside money for, what is only getting more and more expensive? I mean, irrigation systems, if you get out for less than $3 million, you're being very efficient. What are they doing, rather than potentially going to some other model that would put that bill onto someone else's tab?
Yeah, it's it's candidly a little hard to discern, but basically, without getting too in the details, the city's revenue from the golf courses gets split into two kind of buckets. One bucket goes to the general fund, which funds the maintenance of those golf courses, and the second bucket goes to the multi-year fund. And the way they explain it, and this is a multi-year fund that's specifically for the golf assets, to the best of my knowledge. And the way I've heard that explained was that there's not really, it is between the 5 golf courses that multi-year fund is shared, but the funds that come into it are sort of quasi-allocated to those courses that they were generated from whenever they're spent. So as far as a specific plan, the city did do a few renovations a few years ago. They did Stevens Park was redone, and Luna Vista were both done by John Corrigan, and those are Stevens has been really well received. I think Luna Vista is another golf course that's in a floodplain, and I think they did a really good job with what they had there. And it's just hard to keep floodplain golf from flooding every once in a while, especially in Texas when you get torrential downpours with 6 inches in a day or something crazy every once in a while. Tenison Glen Tenison Highlands was also redone in the early 2000s by I think DGI Executive Board. And so those 3 courses, did have some extensive renovations. The other 3 have not, as far as I know, been extensively renovated in quite some time. I don't know that the city has or has shared a long-term plan for sort of what the next steps are. The park board has adopted a master plan for Samuel Grand Park that says Tenison Glen needs to be shrunk. That is, as it stands, part of the plan. That's it. The terms are ill-defined, but at some point in the future, whenever the city spends money at Tenison, it will have to comply with that plan. So we'll see, but there's no timeline for that really. So, what we were trying to do is really sort of say, hey, let's get this off of your plate. Yeah. Let's, but again, to Brett's point, I mean, this is something that we learned along the way that I would really share to other folks that are trying to get involved. I mean, you think about it from the city's perspective, it's not just capital improvement projects. It's not just expenses. It's labor, right? I mean, you've got jobs that are tied to these things. You've got, revenue that comes into different buckets, right? I don't know how most municipal systems work, but I'm sure they're all different. And where the money goes is just as important as where it's coming from. So things like that are things not to get too invested in day one, but just to be aware of for anybody else that's starting to work on a municipal project.
And Will, Benton's being too kind. The city, to answer your question bluntly, the city is very reactive in their nature, and does not. They haven't shared their plans with us because there aren't plans for renovation or capital improvement projects. It happens. It's very reactively, and they, quite frankly, have to take bond allotments and plan years in advance after an incident occurs or a decision is made before anything can actually happen. So, he said renovations. Well, one of those renovations at Tenison was 25 years ago. I don't know if we can call that a renovation because that's a quarter of a century ago. And then the other 2 were 10 plus years ago. So that's kind of where we currently stand.
But you referred to it currently. Sort of things are situation normal at Tenison Glen. the trail isn't being built. It's just that they're operating as an 18-hole golf course.
Well,
And
the trail is actually complete, and it runs. It's hard to describe without looking at a map of Tenison, but there's a little chicken wing of
Yeah.
land that juts out sideways, and the trail actually bisects that it splits the 8th tee and the 9th green, and then the 10th green and the 11th tee. So the trail actually runs, so you've got hikers and bikers running through, so which is kind of cool, honestly. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know that I
great.
hate it. I kind of
No,
like that.
happens all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a neat thing. But again, we were trying to comply with the city's master plan of shrinking the golf course
Sure.
away from that trail. So that's sort of where it stands. But no, the city, the trail is built because it's funded by third parties. They have the Circuit Trail Conservancy is a nonprofit that's done a great job in creating their project. But nothing else has happened at the golf course.
So, really quick, why was Cedar Crest and I Am a Golfer Foundation sort of carved out? Is it because of they've been working on this for longer and we're further along in the process, or what's the story there? And by
Yeah,
the way,
I mean,
I know you guys are huge fans
yes.
of I Am a Golfer and Cedar Crest, as our National Links Trust. Brett, last time I saw you was at the Southwest Showcase down there. It's a great facility. They're doing great things both at the golf course and in the community. So, I want to say that before we get into this. So
That is very important. Yes, we are big fans and big cheerleaders of theirs, and we're wishing them the best because I think, quite frankly, they're going to set Dallas up hopefully for the future. Set up for success for the future. And so, to answer your question, I think it was a multitude of things. I think one, if you look at the past at Cedar Crest, there has been scenarios where, with maintenance, the greens have gone through, had fallen on tough times. And so there has been scenarios where maybe the operator has had to, I mean, it's public, it's out there, I guess. So I guess I can say it, but it's, the operator has had to sue their contract holder, which is the city, because it affects this gentleman's livelihood, and that he has no control over the product that he's selling on a day in and day out basis. And so the problematic past, I think the fact that, Tenison as a whole is probably the most profitable facility out there, where Cedar Crest is not. So if you were going to beta test this, that might be a better facility. Yes, like you had mentioned, I'm a golfer, and the folks involved with that have been at this longer than we have. And I think, quite frankly, they have a donor pool that they've been at it longer than we have. They've got a donor pool that I think is ready to hopefully jump at an opportunity to contribute to the nonprofit for renovation projects. And so I think a lot of those, maybe even some other stuff that I've missed, Benton, are the reason that they got carved out. And I think they're really honestly set up for success. So we just thought, if they were going to carve out that facility and they were going to write these RFPs so that a nonprofit could bid on it through a long-term lease, could they not have that as an option at Tenison to at least hear that without completely closing the door?
Yeah, I just to sort of build on what Brett's saying, and so just to provide a little context first, I'm a Golfer Foundation has been organizing youth programs and doing a community engagement stuff at Tenison for quite some time. The operator at Cedar Crest, you're right. The operator is a for-profit company. Those groups are related, but right now I'm a Golfer's not the contract holder for Cedar Crest. So. However, they've done incredible work. They've raised a lot of money for sort of improvements around the course itself. Sort of honoring the history of A.W. Tillinghast and Walter Hagen, who won the tournament there, and really integrating into the community very, very well. And so I would like to think that us being outsiders that didn't have anything to lose by sort of confronting the city about certain ideas. I hope that our efforts really help them sort of have the opportunity to present their plan. And really quickly, I do also want to point out one other thing. The RFPs, when they were announced, the four other facilities are only being considered for the existing hybrid public-private model. Cedar Crest is only being considered for a nonprofit management model. And I know for a fact that there has been no pre-negotiations with the city between I'm a Golfer and the city. I mean, that's just that has not happened. And that's an interesting thing for the city to do, to sort of say, we're going to have the nonprofit system be the only system that we consider, because there's really no other applicants besides I'm a Golfer that we're aware of that would try to take that facility and run it. So the whole thing is an interesting position, and really what we were lobbying for, like Brett said, was consider multiple options, please. And the city said, yes, we will do that, but only in silos, right? We're not going to consider multiple options for a single facility, which is, gets back to the frustrating part. But just want to reiterate how supportive we are by I'm a Golfer. They've been incredibly helpful to us. We've had a really strong relationship with those guys for the entirety of our existence. They've been extremely helpful. And we couldn't be more supportive of what they're doing. And, they're hard at work putting their bid together for the city right now. And if there's any way we can help, we're going to. So we're very bullish on what they're able to achieve down there. And just to sort of provide more context, Southwest Showcase is an incredible new collegiate golf tournament that showcases historically Black college and university golfers, which was hosted for the first time at Cedar Crest last year and is coming back this fall, which is extremely awesome. We're thrilled that that's been a successful venture for those guys.
Yeah, it's great. Well, that's sort of a nice segue into, okay, where does DGI go from here?
Yeah, not operating Tenison, most likely. I think that ship has sailed, at least for the short term. These contracts are 5-year the new ones are actually a 7-year with a 3-year renewal. So it might be 10 more years before we get a shake at that. We are still interested in being involved and lending guidance or where we can, and being that Tenison's our home track, and that Benton and I both live in East Dallas. We have some ideas that we think would be that we would be able to raise funds for, that are not maybe that would require less maintenance, right? That maybe the donors wouldn't be apprehensive to contribute funds for the city to maintain, and a third party to profit off of, a third party for profit to profit off of. So, Benton, I think it's okay to kind of say, a few of those things are kind of an urban golf, urban golf park. We've talked to the city about that. That's something that I think, it involves youth, it involves, programming, it involves very little maintenance. And that's something that I think we can certainly fundraise for. And I think that's something that we would advocate for. Benton kind of alluded to it earlier, but Lee Trevino, there was a great piece that came out, I think, from the RNA around the time of the Open this year. Lee Trevino's history out at Tenison. All those stories that everybody's heard of Lee Trevino took place out at Tenison. And for whatever reason, I think a lot of people probably either don't know that or are going to forget that in future generations. That's going to be completely forgotten. And I think we want to have a hand in on memorializing him out there in some capacity. And we've been talking with his, with some of his family, and it's early stages, but I think that's something that I think a lot of folks would be really excited about, telling that story and making sure that story's known, out there for generations to come. So those are two projects, but I think continuing just to cultivate a real fun, golf experience. We're bullish on some of these, like we mentioned, I'm a Golfer. There's also a group out at Keaton Park, and we want to encourage folks to seek out what Tony Martinez and his son Ty Martinez have done out at Keaton Park. They make golf fun, just simply put. They don't take themselves too seriously. They are all about having music out there, having fun out there, breaking down any barriers. And there was an awesome piece 2 weeks ago, not this past Saturday, but last Saturday, about PGA Reach and the success that they've had out at Keaton Park with PGA Reach. And if you didn't see that on CBS, I would seek that out, because it was a really neat piece, and you can really see the awesome stuff they're doing out there. Benton, anything else that you can kind of think of as to what DGI holds in the future? I mean, we want to continue to be involved in any way we possibly can in Dallas Municipal Golf, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is something that, Brett and I, we're not, there's an old quote, why did explorers try to venture around the world in the age of exploration? It was 3 reasons, and it was gold, glory, or God, right? So if you had asked Brett why we're doing this, it's probably for glory more than anything else. We're not trying to make this our careers. This is a passion project for us. And this is something that we really want to keep going, even in the absence of a formal structure, a board, even if we can't raise any more money, like we want to be boosters of Dallas Municipal Golf, all of it, right? And that's key. And I think if nothing else, we can continue to work on that path alongside the other things, alongside providing support to Cedar Crest and Keaton and the other facilities, and even finding ways to work with the management group out at Tenison. I mean, I don't want to close the door on that either.
Yeah.
To see if there's ways that we can cooperate and make something happen that's special, unique, different, exciting, etc. We're really bullish on what we think Tenison should look like in the future, right? Like I don't think I'm more convinced of anything than the Lit Part 3, the double decked range, the putting course, the urban golf program, and of course the Lee Trevino sort of memorial. He's not passed away, I don't want to say that, but the Lee Trevino sort of celebration of his accomplishments. Those things are all things that I still believe Tenison really needs. And so, in the absence of more concrete stuff, just pushing for that, just working with the city, working with the manager, working with the park board and the staff, and just try to find ways to get that done, because I just think it needs to be done. Yeah, I would say that's sort of the what we're hoping to push for as we continue.
All right, we're getting close to the end of time, so I got a couple more questions, and then hopefully we have a couple minutes to open this up to the Q&A. I guess, quickly, any advice to someone who's out there who really cares about their municipal golf course in their city and wants to figure out how to make it better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had never been in City Hall before. I'd never had any reason to reach out to any of council members or park board. Be curious. Just be curious, and I'm telling you right now, we didn't maybe succeed initially. I'm still optimistic that our group will be successful, and that Dallas Municipal Golf will continue to thrive and get better. But it takes friends groups, it takes nonprofits, it takes public-private partnerships, it takes folks that want to be involved maybe a little bit more than just grabbing a tea time on the weekend. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to just seek those council members, the park staff, and ask how you can get involved. I think you'd be really surprised as to how easy it is to grab coffee. I mean, Benton said this in a previous call, grabbing coffee. It took us one call, and we were meeting with park board members when this initially started, and it's snowballed since then. And you never know what's going to come of it, right? It might fail completely. You might not get anywhere, but you don't know unless you try. So reach out, be passionate, go down that rabbit hole. And quite frankly, I think you might be a little surprised as to how far you can get. But that's my suggestion is, if you are passionate, and you really do have to have the passion, don't think about it from a business standpoint or get rich or any of this type of stuff. It's think about it because you actually care about your community and you care about improving the product and the experience and continuing to break down barriers and make municipal golf what it should be.
Yeah, you know, I think I echo that entirely. Just you'll be you will be, you know, you will either be shocked at how quickly somebody in city government genuinely wants to help, because I think you know, most of the folks do want to help, and those that don't want you to stop calling them as quickly as possible, so they'll pass you on to someone who does. And so just keep pushing and keep talking. And what I'll add to that is, once you have some sense of what's possible, or where you want to go, I would definitely try your hardest. You know, once you start raising those first dollars and trying to get folks interested in being a part of it, I would say one of the first things to do is create something that really showcases the vision. I think if I could look back on what we did, you know, over the last 4 years and say, you know, if there's one thing I would change, I would have done the master plan for our project 2-3 years earlier. Because once you have something to sell, it doesn't matter if it's not exactly what people want, because you might worry that it locks people in and they're not going to get creative, but like, that's what gets creative juices flowing. Have something that's concrete where you can look at a map and say, here's what it is, here's what it could be. That gets people excited more than just talking about it.
You have to evoke emotion, right? And through master
so
plan, imagery, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I would say for the first dollars, that would be my recommendation. If you get first money, spend it on something that builds the vision, that can get people excited. Because again, like Brett said, we're passionate people. We live and breathe golf, you know, and not everybody's like that. And a lot of the decision makers aren't like that. So getting something that excites them, that they can understand, is a big help.
Well, guys, this has been a great discussion. And Benton, you know, you said earlier the Explorer quote about money, glory, and God. It's not, you guys weren't in this for glory. You're in it for God. It's not religion in its you know, normal sense. It's the religion of golf. You guys are evangelists. We're all evangelists for the game of golf here. We care about it. We love it. We think it can change people's lives because it's changed our lives. And that's why you guys spent the last 4 years pushing a boulder up a hill. And you know, we really appreciate it. And we appreciate your guys' support of National Links Trust over the years.